So thank you very much and good afternoon. Well, in South Africa, they like to do assessments of ministers. And every December, it's a horrible month because that's when the opposition and the newspapers grade you. And you either come out really well or very, very badly. Now, I'm always graded well. And I keep reminding the media that it's because of the people I work with. We have fantastic researchers in our country, and I'm fortunate as a minister to have a really good department with excellent public servants. So it's them who make me look good, it's not me. And I'm sure you're going to see that this afternoon. But I thought what I'd like to perhaps begin with is a little bit about the story of astronomy in South Africa. It's a science in which South African researchers have been involved for many, many years. We have a very good complement of scientists who are committed to astrophysics, to physics, mathematics, engineering, and all the allied disciplines in the astronomy field. But it's been somewhat of an esoteric discipline in that it had an elite character and was primarily the science of privileged middle-aged white males in South Africa. And you didn't really have young people, and in particular young black graduates, interested or involved in the discipline. Now, knowing that this was an area in which we were very productive, if you look at all the indicators relevant to research development, I, as a minister, realized that we had to continue to have a commitment to this area of science, because given where we are as a country and the processes of political change and transition, there's often a very negative reaction to that which might be perceived as being of no use or no relevance to society. There's always this search for relevance. But I felt that from my contact with scientists and observation of work that was being done in astronomy sciences, that it was an area that we needed to continue investing in. And so I took on quite an interest, trying to find out more, supporting the science and promoting it in the range of public engagement activities of our department. And to tell you the truth, the results have been quite staggering for me. And it is for that reason that we began to talk more and more in South Africa about astronomy for development. Because no matter how it was characterized, we were able to establish that the astronomy sciences can make an important contribution to the development of young people and broadly to the development of society, and that it was in fact a brilliant discipline to utilize to engender interest in science. And it is really for that reason that I think this notion of astronomy for development became rooted in our South African science sector. There are a range of actors involved. What I'm going to talk about really today, primarily, perhaps not through the slide presentation, but in my general comments, would to a great degree be the science investments, the investments we're making in astronomy sciences as a department. And in particular, I will talk about SALT, which is Southern Africa's largest telescope, which was our first really big investment in an international collaboration on a science astronomy infrastructure. And the other project I will refer to is the Square Kilometre Array, which again is a massive global astronomy science infrastructure initiative. But let me come back to this concept. The institution that has incorporated the notion of astronomy for development is the International Astronomical Union. They have established a number of offices of astronomy for development throughout the world. And we established such an office a few years ago, supported by funding from our National Research Foundation, which is our big grant-making body in South Africa, and located at the South African Astronomical Observatory, which is located in Cape Town. It is the oldest astronomy institution in South Africa, and it hosts the Africa Regional Office of Astronomy for Development. And my department, the Department of Science and Technology, provides a great deal of the funding to the NRF and SAU for the work that they do. And we have a rule about branding. If we provide you with funding, we are part of your brand. So let me see if I can make this work. Well, what we're showing here is what we've discovered is that if there's one way in which you can intrigue young people and the general population about science, it's the universe. There is no child I have seen who will not want to be the next one to use a telescope when one is available. And so this just illustrates that curiosity, that element of wanting to know more. And it's something that we've really taken advantage of. And you would see that those individuals are viewing on very rough spaces. So our notion is science can be done anywhere, particularly astronomy sciences. As long as the skies are as beautiful as that, which is Sutherland, you can do astronomy viewing. So these would be the planets that we're interested in and what we introduce to young people, and the various views that we show them of as you use a telescope and change the perspective from which you are viewing, you see more and more. You learn more and more about the planets, about the stars, about Earth. So, in 1996, 2 years after the first democratic election in South Africa, we had to develop a policy paper on science. We adopted a white paper on science and technology in 1996. It was a very organic process from scientists right up through to the parliamentary process. And it had this very important statement within it, that scientific endeavor is not purely utilitarian in its objectives and has important cultural and social values. And this was to respond to the raging debate that this elite science, ignore it, what are you doing? We want science which delivers services to the people, which changes the condition of society. This science doesn't do that. And we, in the white paper, said not to offer flagship sciences, such as physics and astronomy, would be to take a negative view of our future. Would be to appropriate a view that we're a second-class nation, that there's science we cannot do, and that we are changed forever to the treadmill of feeding and clothing ourselves. It was interesting that we were saying that in 1996, because in 2010 to 12, when we were bidding for the square kilometer array, when I met the head of the National Research Foundation, the National Science Foundation in the United States, she said exactly that to me. Why am I not focusing on food security? Why am I interested in the SKA? And she thought I'd be better at focusing on agriculture and forgetting about square kilometer array. Well, I'm glad I didn't listen to her. Now, we took a different view in 1996, and in 2011, National Science Foundation head was saying that to me. I found it very peculiar. Our view is that astronomy has these links, and we've mapped them out in very careful ways because we felt that it was important we're able to show, and it's not just outsiders, it's even our own government and sometimes our own population, that we need to illustrate to them the various disciplines that make up the field of astronomy. As we've implemented a number of initiatives, one of the big issues that has come up is big data. Processing of big data, imaging, developing the appropriate software, ensuring you have the hardware, the new motherboards, so all sorts of opportunities in big data. And we hadn't thought of that when we were initiating a number of our projects. You don't think about electronics, or you don't realize that actually you must have good conversations with engineers, because if you have the wrong receivers on your antennae, then you have to change the whole positioning of your telescope. So engineering, absolutely important. But a really amazing lesson for us was in the area of technology and just technical skills. We'd been focusing on physics, mathematics, astrophysics. We certainly were looking at information technology and computing, but suddenly we had to find out who's able to put up a 6-foot telescope and ensure that it doesn't collapse. So you need your technicians. So suddenly, out of the towns very close to our initiatives, we had to find 300 young people to be trained in vocational colleges in technical skills that were critical to our initiative. So it's just the wide range of fields, both related to culture. We were talking about art and astronomy recently. Many people don't know that at the beginning of humanity, the Sand people in Africa were actually drawing rock art and their imagery of the stars, of the universe. And so culture and society, very, very important. Technical skills, and then just your basic sciences also come into play. We also have looked at, well, the world has adopted the Sustainable Development Goals. There are 17. And we were all extremely excited at Goal 9, because you'll remember with the MDGs, innovation wasn't mentioned. And here, suddenly, you had industry, innovation, and infrastructure. But then you also have reduction of poverty, zero hunger, health, education, gender equality, and the rest. How do these apply within the astronomy sciences? These are the links we've been able to establish through some of our initiatives. So if you're looking at innovation, industry and dark skies, you look at partnerships for sustainability. If you, like our ministers in our country, you are required by virtue of government policy to hold public meetings on the work that your department is doing. And when you're in those public meetings, you get farmers standing up and saying, Minister Pandor, I can't use my cell phone any longer. And we say, no, but that's not true, because we know we brought in a particular mast to your area. We spoke to the communications authority, and you actually have digital access, so you've got some of the best reception in this rural community. And then they go, oh, yeah, okay, yeah. You know. But they're just trying to make you uncomfortable, or workers stand up and say, we're not part of your initiatives. We don't get jobs. But we say, but we've just been building an 80-kilometer road, and over 500 of you were employed on that road building initiative. So a whole host of the Sustainable Development Goals are, we believe, responded to by the initiatives that we have been implementing in the fields of astronomy. Even the matter of decolonization of teaching materials comes in, because suddenly communities that have been neglected are recognized for rock art, for their tapestry weaving, for a whole range of skills that exist unrecognized and unacknowledged in communities and not having any link whatsoever to science. Suddenly it is made visible. We dispute alternative facts. You have people who raise all sorts of very funny things, that the sheep are getting thin because of the antennae. They're very afraid of the SKA. And there are like 4 sheep in the area. In fact, there are no farms close by, but all sorts of very weird stories are being told. But one of the most exciting experiences for me has been what we call the Collateral Benefits Program, where in communities where there wasn't any science present, due to the investment in infrastructure for astronomy, we have brought in science and mathematics for the first time. So young children now have access to mathematics. With support from our collaborators, we've been able to build science laboratories in schools that never had such facilities before. And then we also, given our intention to pursue non-racism, we're able to bring children together from diverse communities to work together on science initiatives. And we have it as part of our rules that for those sites where there is physical viewing, community members or school children must be given access from time to time. And we've also established in each of the communities in which our facilities are located, we have educational centers that can be visited by parents, by teachers, by school children, so that they can get computer access to the telescope and get to know more about the work that we're doing. So through the Collateral Benefits Program, for the first time, we have young people from 2 distinct villages that are part of our major initiatives going to university for the first time to pursue degrees in science and engineering as part of our scholarship programs. You have young people passing maths and science at the school leaving examinations who would never have had such opportunities had we not had these initiatives available in their communities. You have schools which had never had a maths teacher before and so never offered maths, now having a maths teacher that we provide alongside the education department. So we don't take on this work necessarily ourselves. We work with the related departments in order to ensure that we're able to assist our communities. Now, what's been really exciting is that when we establish, for example, a computer center such as this one in Carnarvon, it's not just the children who use it, their parents can come in and use it as well. We have an adult skills development program, which would be part of the educational initiatives. We also have science programs where young people present projects that they're doing to other youngsters. We encourage young people to participate in Olympiads in science and compete with children in other parts of the country. The square kilometer array, which you're seeing, the few dishes we've put up, this is the meerkat, which we're building as the precursor in South Africa. It's in a very remote part, almost desert-like, of the Northern Cape. The nearest towns are just 4 towns. One of them is Carnarvon, another is Williston. I can't remember the name of the other. But these are children from the local schools visiting the site, having a laboratory for computer science. This is a young lady who recently got a BSc scholarship. She's studying information technology at Free State University And these are the workers that were involved in building the road access to the square kilometer array. So we have very strong human capital and outreach initiatives as part of our interpretation of astronomy for development. We have regional coordinators from different parts of the world, all involved in astronomy for development. They run offices of astronomy for development, and they have an annual meeting in different parts of the world. So the 2016 meeting was organized in South Africa, and you can see, I hope, some come from Korea, China, Brazil. There are South Africans, we have Nigeria. So countries in all different parts of the world, all focused on astronomy for development. These are where the offices of astronomy for development are located. Again, different parts of the world, and the yellowish is our projects that are supported by the AIU. We have a range of partners that we work with in different countries in the world, and a lot of our partners are governments or universities, as well as non-governmental organizations or organizations of civil society working in the education and science development space. One of the things we do try to ensure is that as we make these opportunities available, we have a gender lens to them, because science can be very, very male, and often young women are neglected. And so we're very, very clear that we must have a spread of equity in terms of access to scholarships. We must see as many girls as boys. We must see young black people and young people from all racial groups. And we try as well to encourage an international perspective. So you would find among the recipients of the SKA scholarships that around 38% go to African students from other countries in Africa. It's very important that those opportunities are spread beyond South African students. So these then would be some of the language centers of the OAD regional offices. As you know, in Africa, we have a spread in terms of languages: Portuguese, Arabic-speaking parts of our continent, as well as your Francophone and Anglophone English. And then in Southern Africa, we tend to use much more English. But we're trying on the continent to ensure that we do collaborate throughout all the countries that have the OAD offices. So I've made reference then to this wonderful affinity that we see between the Sustainable Development Goals and the various activities and disciplines linked to the subjects that make up the broad field of astronomy sciences. We speak of sharing skills across disciplines. So we're saying while astronomers are looking up, we have development economists looking down. So we have image processing and resampling, which are high-end skills, and you have rural electrification as a development initiative. You have tourism on coastlines as one of the areas of benefit. You have source detection algorithms. We look at issues of land reform, mapping of land, your geosciences data, different lighting resources, as well as just using algorithms to assist us with better data management and data gathering, particularly for communities that may not have such indicators on them gathered or available. We also have begun to provide planning information to local government in order to assist them with a rapidly emerging problem in our country of a very large spread of informal settlements in urban settings. And so the link between science and developmental providers in local government has been, I think, a very welcome shift in the relationship across sectors and disciplines. So, what do we think we are doing? We're saying we're providing a foundation for a common language between the data science and scientists and astronomy communities. Our audience, astronomers, professional scientists, students, and industry. We're trying to get everybody involved. So it's not the business of my department on its own. The private sector has to be a partner. We have American-based companies that are part of the engineering initiative. They must understand we have a development imperative, and we expect them to play a role in responding to it. So these would be some of what we hope would emerge from the collaboration we have developed. And our intent is Sustainable Goals 4 and 8, quality education, and ensuring that we support increasingly access to resources that would improve economic growth. With the SKA, it's been very interesting that in South Africa we have a policy on what's called localization, where we try and use local skills and materials to implement big government-supported initiatives. The initial funding for SKA, the precursor, is ourselves as South Africa. And we've been really excited that 75% of the project has been executed with local business suppliers playing a very leading role. We, of course, have international partners, but the issue of economic growth and local development is very important for us. We also have had to address matters of inclusion. We've become very involved, particularly with researchers and academics in astronomy who have challenges of accessibility and inclusion. So how would a student with sight disability who's a postdoc who wants to be a part of the Square Kilometre Array play a role in that initiative? And I don't know if you know this wonderful Dr. Mesed, who's a Brazilian postdoc who's working in South Africa with our colleagues in Astronomy for Development. And she goes out, meets young people, she goes out to the SALT telescope, does her data gathering, and comes and shares it with young girls in seminars that we run with her leadership in the Western Cape. So we've had to address the issues of access to our astronomy facilities for persons who have disabilities of various types. We've also had to ensure that we provide educational materials in Braille. We're also able to provide material in sign language for young people who may have a hearing disability. So the whole issue of access and inclusion is something that must be addressed if you're really serious about astronomy for development. And as Dr. Wanda told us in one meeting of young women on science, inclusion is not about doing a favor, she says, for a particular group. It's about growing the science itself by bringing in new skills and perspectives, because seeing science from her perspective, you look at it in a very different way. And if you hadn't had her, you wouldn't even be aware of that dimension. And so inclusion teaches important lessons, even about the kinds of technology you need to develop. We were recognized recently. Our office in South Africa received in 2016 the Edinburgh Medal, and it was the first time that astronomy sciences received the Edinburgh Medal, and we're really excited that our young man who heads the Office of Astronomy for Development in South Africa, a young man called Kevin Govender, along with the International Astronomical Union, received the Edinburgh Medal. And you can imagine South Africa learning to say Edinburgh, because everyone was excited at it. So we were absolutely thrilled that on the international award level, we were able to receive an award which people such as Mr. Mandela have received, and it's for astronomy. It was really exciting. And I've just been talking more and more recently at the World Science Forum about these issues of multidisciplinarity. We've all had organizations of science existing as very disparate organizations that almost appeared to compete and contradict each other. But with the recent conjoining of ICSU and ISSC, with a large majority supporting the two merging, we've been really excited that now the social scientists and those in the natural sciences are beginning to talk to each other in one organization. And I think this really bodes well for the development of science in the future. So that's our story of what we have tried to do through utilizing astronomy for development. And I think I'll stop there. Thank you very much.